Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle, and I'm an education and program specialist at the Gilcrease Museum. And I would like to welcome you to our next Facebook Live, where we are going to be learning all about finger weaving and gourd carving with Cherokee artist Karen Berry. So, Karen grew up in Texas and currently resides in Garland, Texas. She learned about Cherokee culture and art through her mother, Martha Berry, who we had the privilege of doing a Facebook Live with a couple weeks ago. And Karen uh, talks about how her mother really inspired her and how her mother revived the tradition of Cherokee beadwork for our people. So Karen fell in love with gourd art through her history of woodworking and painting. This medium was a natural progression combining these talents. Karen also incorporates pre-European contact and modern Cherokee designs into her work, which we'll get to look at a little later. And what I'm most excited to talk about with Karen today is her finger weaving. So Karen began finger weaving in 2012 in the style typically done by Southeastern woodland tribes during the 18th century. She, along with other weavers, has helped lead a revival of this traditional style within the Cherokee Nation. And additionally, she has also revived the practice of creating bandolier bags using this technique. So Karen, welcome and thank you so much for being with us here at the Gilcrease today.
Thanks, Danielle. Nice to be here.
So I have been a great admirer of your work. I kind of finger weaving is really my first love, and I stumbled upon your work, and I just want to say thank you so much for all the hard work that you do, because your work is truly just beautiful down to every single detail. It's just immaculate work. I love getting to see your stuff.
Thank you.
So today we are going to talk all about how Karen first got started in the art world with the gourd carvings, and then we're going to talk about the finger weaving that she does. But I do want to remind all of the viewers out there that you can post questions, and at the end of our discussion we will check the questions, and so you can ask Karen anything that you would like. So the first thing that I want to talk about is your website. So if anyone wants to look you up, you actually have a website that they can go to, and we're going to show it right here on the screen. But if you would like to visit, it's www.karenberrycherokee.com. And Karen, can you tell us a little bit about the things that they'll see on your website?
Yeah, I have a history of awards and any exhibitions that I've done. And then there's a finger weaving page and a gourd carving page, because I have the two mediums. And at the bottom of both of those pages are some kind of notable pieces that you can read some of the stories about, some of the traditional Cherokee stories. So it's kind of fun.
Awesome. Now, we got to talk to your mom a couple weeks ago. Your mom's Martha Berry, and we talked to her about Cherokee beadwork. And it was a great time talking to her, and that really led us into, like, we want to connect with your daughters. Like, we would love to have them, and we'd love to have them share the projects that they're working on as well. And I did want to show a piece. I know that you and I have talked about this since we did the live, but we were talking about the water spider story. And so I wanted everyone to get a chance to take a look. It's actually a piece of work where it's finger weaving of the water spider in the beadwork.
Oh, yeah.
But after I talked to your mom, and then I was going through your photos and I saw that, I was like, I just saw your mom, and I was like, this is so cool that Karen has, pieces that are dedicated to the water spider, because, not only is your mom a water spider in beadwork for our people, but bringing that back, but also, Karen, you're a little bit of a water spider as well.
Oh, I thought you said you weren't going to make me cry.
I always say there's not as many finger weavers in the world as there needs to be. But one thing that you have really pioneered is finger weaving bags, which is an immense project. And I can't wait for us to talk about that a little later and show more of your work. Sure. But before we get into finger weaving, let's talk about your first love. Let's talk about your gourd artwork. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into gourd artwork and what that process looks like?
Yeah, I used to do woodworking and stuff like that, and which is great, and it's fun to manipulate wood. But then I just started seeing that gourds were a part of Cherokee tradition and history, and they were utilitarian objects mostly, not really sculpture. But um, I just started looking at them, and they're such a fun canvas because every single one of them is shaped differently, and so it's not just painting on a square. And I just thought that seemed so fun. So I just started getting into it and got the Dremel out and thought, what a cool way to express these pre-European contact motifs and symbols on these gourds. And the gourd kind of tells you what it wants to be. And so I just fell in love with it, and just kind of took it and ran with it.
Yeah. So since you mentioned it, let's talk a little bit about the artwork that is on your gourd. So the first one I want to talk about is the one that has the Mississippian motif on it, and it's the woodpecker motif. Can you tell our audience a little bit about, what do we mean when we say Mississippian motif, and where does that imagery come from?
Yeah, definitely. So when we say Mississippian or mound builder or pre-European contact, that was all the people that were along, in the Georgia, North Carolina, that whole Mississippian area. And they put all kinds of symbols on their pottery, and we have those pot shards that remained. I mean, they probably put it on other stuff that rotted away, unfortunately. But we have all those motifs from the pottery that survived. And the symbolism is so amazing to me, and that's what I love playing with. And the woodpecker specifically represents warriors, not like the generals. The generals are always represented by turkeys. And so I like to think of the woodpecker is just, the grunt, the boots on the ground, the people who actually have to fight the wars, that we send them off to. So that's a special symbol to me, and I really, really like it. And that first one I did was dedicated to veterans, and actually my dad has it now. So that's kind of special to me.
Yeah, and the next gourd that I wanted to take a look at is your water spider. So if you guys didn't get to hear the story, you can actually go back on our Facebook and you can search all of our past lives and you can look up Martha's. And I didn't actually know Martha was going to do that, but she told the story of the water spider. So if you want to check that out, you can. And we also see this motif not only in your mom's beadwork, but we also see it in your gourd. So can you talk to us a little bit about your water spider gourd?
Sure, and yeah, she told that story very well. I did actually put the one from, I think it's from the Mooney book, on my website, so you can read that there too. But yeah, she's special to the Cherokee because she brought people fire, which is very important. So yeah, go back and listen to the story because she tells it better than I would. But yeah, she's a great character, and you see her all over the place, and she's very Cherokee. So I like doing that one.
She's such a beautiful symbol too.
She really is, and it's funny because I am hugely arachnophobic.
Yeah.
And as I'm carving it, like, because I usually put them in my art room so I can kind of, as I'm walking by, kind of, are those legs even, that kind of thing. And every once in a while, until she gets the googly eyes, I like jump every time I see her out of the corner of my eye. And but as soon as she gets the googly eyes, it's like, okay, she's not so threatening anymore.
And I do want to take a look at one more gourd that you have, and it's the Oochtan Gourd. So if you could tell us a little bit, you don't have to tell like an actual story, but if you would like to share with our viewers today, who is Oochtan and the symbolism that goes behind him.
Yeah, definitely. He's really special because in Cherokee mythology or beliefs or whatever you want to call it, there are three worlds. There's the upper world, our world, and the lower world. And the lower world is represented by a serpent usually, and then our world is the forest and deer and things like that. And then the upper world is birds and feathers and wings and things like that. And Oochtan represents all three of those in one creature. So he's basically a feathered winged serpent that has antlers, and he has a crystal in his forehead. And he's always symbolized with the forked tongue, which a lot of people think means the snake, but then they also think maybe it is singing like bird song coming out like a cartoon, of a sound. So it's a really cool symbol. I remember looking through all of those pottery designs, the Mississippian pottery designs. There's some great books out there that have that. I can link to one later. I didn't think to send that to you, but I always thought that he looked like a Viking ship, which was really neat, like the way they would draw him. And then he has the little rattle on his tail too. So very cool symbol. I enjoy that one.
Yeah. So, Karen, how long have you been doing this gourd artwork?
I started in 2011 and just kind of went crazy. I got my first award at the Homecoming Art Show with Water Spider, and
Yeah.
I just was like hooked. And then I was like me, so it was great.
Yeah, and we'll get to see that image. We have an image of that one actually, and so you can see Karen here with. Well, it's awesome when you like get into something and then you see, other people are like, oh, they love it too.
Yeah.
So, how long does it normally take you to do a gourd carving?
Oh, yeah, it's funny because people always ask how long it took me to make something, and then I just give them my age because I feel like that's a good answer because it's just a lifetime of experience. But I don't track my hours because I have a full-time job, and I want to keep it fun and a hobby. But it takes me, usually several months, like just of weekends, because I only do. It's funny because I have the two different art forms, and they're so different. And I always say, like, the gourd carving is the stuff I go out and I get all sweaty on the weekend and fill a whole day with, versus the weaving, which I do every evening methodically, and it's just kind of like therapy for me. So totally different art forms. But yeah, the gourd carving is just kind of intermittent. Like I'll do a Saturday here and then I'll wait 2 weeks and do another Sunday or something. So usually about 6 months, 7, 8, something like that, and it'll just kind of sit in various stages along the way.
Yeah, and if you guys are interested, Karen's on social media as well. You can find her on Facebook. And Karen, I love because you actually post a lot of progression photos. So we get to see, like what the drawing looks like on the gourd, and then you'll do updates as you're carving out and as you're adding color. So that's another really cool thing that you guys can check out as well if you find her on social media.
Yeah, definitely. I like sharing that process. Very fun.
Now, I'm a little biased, but we are going to get into my favorite part of the talk today, which is finger weaving. And we probably have some viewers out there who probably have never heard of finger weaving, or when I say finger weaving, especially to like a younger generation, they think of like, it's like a little like bracelet thing that they make on their hands. And I was like, no, it's where people always ask me like, oh, do you mean macrame? And I was like, no, it's not quite that. So can you tell us a little bit about what in the world is finger weaving?
Sure. Basically, it's called that because you're not using a loom, you're using your fingers to do all of the weaving. So there's different styles. There's warp face, which is kind of like loom weaving, where you have a thread that goes through or a shuttle that goes through the two warps. But the style I do is more of a lattice, and it doesn't have, that's what they call it, open face. So it's not, you see both warps anyway, but that's very technical. But basically, yeah, you do it with your hands. So it's completely handmade, no loom. You can do it pretty much anywhere. So yeah, I think you have some pictures of my hands actually doing it, and that's kind of basically you can just tie it to a doorknob, tie it to whatever. I have a little lap desk that I can sit and watch TV, and it's very therapeutic and keeps your hands busy, that's for sure.
Yeah. So there's actually lots of tribes that do finger weaving. It might be, the techniques might be a little different, the methods might be a little different. But especially like the tribes that surround the Cherokees originally in Southeast all do this kind of finger weaving. Mm-hmm. And we actually are going to put up a picture right now that you guys can see about how finger weaving is worn. And so you can see in this image, at the bottom of the screen, you'll see there's 2, and they're garters. And Karen, I'm going to have you explain what garters are. Then you'll see on the mannequin, you'll see a belt, which, you know, we all know what a belt it is worn around the waist. And then you'll also see one that goes across the body, which might be called a sash or a bandolier. So Karen, can you tell us about these three different items right here?
Sure. The garters are really cool because they would wear leggings, which don't go all the way up because they would wear a loincloth, and the leggings just protect their lower legs. So they would have to have a strap around the calf in order to keep them on. And so, of course, the Cherokees decorated any surface possible. So that's why they're doing these beautiful beaded, you know, finger weaving garters instead of just, you know, something utilitarian. So, and they would always have the fringe out to the side because it was blingy and flashy and would blow in the wind. So never in the back. It's always coming out the side usually. So those are fun. The belts, you know, I don't know that there's much utilitarian use. It's just mostly decoration. Same with the sashes and bandoliers. So just lots of bling, lots of color. And the cool thing about this art form is it was using trade goods from Europeans. So they fell in love with the materials. You know, they saw the wool yarn, the glass beads, and just went nuts. So.
Yeah. I think it's really cool because, you know, before we have European contact, we have, of course, Cherokees are very industrious people. We're very good with our hands. So, of course, we have natural fibers, like the inside of a tree bark. You can twist together like a mulberry tree. We do things like twining, and we also do weaving. But like you said, when the Europeans come and they bring those wool blankets, it is like a new medium. And I just see those Cherokees like, gimme, gimme, gimme. Like,
yeah,
let me see what I can do with this.
Those colors, you know, I just love to think of that. It must have been a renaissance, you know, for what can we do with these materials, and Europeans being like, that's pretty amazing, you know.
So the next one that I want to look at is actually it's a belt, so we can see your hands and we can actually see you working. We see your little stand. But let's talk a little bit about the method that you predominantly do. It is called open face. Some people call it oblique. And I've heard that this is the oldest form of finger weaving that Cherokee people do. Is that true? And can you tell us a little bit about the process?
I believe so. When I first started, I went to Cherokee Holiday, and saw a lot of the warp face weaving that was being done in the Cherokee Nation. And I thought, why am I not doing this? You know, because I was doing crochet at the time just to keep my fingers busy. And so I started getting books and was learning that. And in the process of learning that, I was looking at historical photos of like Chief Tallahassee of the Seminole and some other, you know, a black and white. You never know what color usually they are, but of these pieces that they were wearing and photographed in. And I'm like, how do you do that with this style that I'm learning? Like, I don't see how that's possible with bead patterns and everything. And then I started discovering that, oh, this is a completely different style of weaving and a completely different technique and everything. So I just kind of scrapped what I was learning on warp face. I don't even know how to do it anymore. And then just started diving headfirst into the oblique, and got Gerald Finley's book, which I think you're going to share also. But he does a great job of having great diagrams. And I taught myself because I'm down here in Texas. And I don't know anyone really at the time that was, or I mean, I'm sure there were people doing it in the Cherokee Nation, but not that I knew or who would teach me. So I just kind of taught myself. And I'm also left-handed, so I had to reverse all the diagrams in my head and kind of figure it out, because it is kind of like the warp face is more ambidextrous because you go both directions usually. But the oblique is not ambidextrous. So I thought I better be learning this with my left hand. So I just kind of from the start reversed everything and learned it that way. And so yeah, it's a neat style. I believe it's the oldest that we were doing in the Southeast. And then the warp face we picked up along the way or after the Trail of Tears, because you know, unfortunately, a lot of things were lost along the trail. And I do believe the oblique weaving was one of those, because it was still being done over there. You know, it was just, it didn't make the journey to Oklahoma, and which is really sad, but that's what we're trying to do, is bring it back and show it to people and let them see that this is what, you know, all of these looked like, and that people were people were doing and are still doing, and let's bring it back. So.
That's why we so appreciate people like you and your mom, Karen.
Oh.
um, so the oblique finger weaving, it really also opens itself up to the next thing I want to talk about, which is your beautiful bags. And to my knowledge, no one was actually doing these oblique bags before you were, correct?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't seen any except for the artifacts that I got a great chance to see. I went to the British Museum and got to look at their finger weaving archives and about fainted. But they have 3 finger woven bags in their archives that one of them is definitely southeastern. I think the other 2 are northeastern, but still it's eastern woodlands, and it's a whole bag done with finger weaving, which when I saw those, I was just like, I gotta do this, So, yeah, it's a handful of yarn to do them because it's very wide, and it's really interesting because when you're doing a sash or a belt, it goes quickly because it's so narrow, and then you get to the bag panel, and a whole row will take you like 20 minutes or something. So it's like a totally different kind of mindset. You have to figure out a good way to bookmark it so you can free your hands and stuff like that. So, but they're fun. I've really been enjoying doing them, and I feel like you can be a little more expressive than you can. I mean, this is before I started drawing with beads, but because you can do all kinds of little additions like cones, with the deer hair and things like that. A sash is just straight weaving, and so I really enjoy the bags, and they are a little bit of work because of all the assembly and the lining and all that stuff, but it's worth it, I think. So
yeah, and I love your Water is Life bag, and our viewers can see, not only is this just finger weaving with yarn, but we can see, especially because this one has these beautiful light blue beads in it, that the beads aren't added afterwards. But in the oblique weaving, you're literally pushing one bead up at a time and adding it to this. And I love your Water is Life bag. And, we can see how much work really goes into a bag. I'm a finger weaver, and I cannot wrap my mind around even trying that. I'm like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah, the first time I did it, I got a hand cramp. And I just had to start doing exercises, but then you start getting the muscles going, and now I don't even notice it, but it's because you're just holding so much yarn in your hands at once. But.
Strongest hands in the world.
Right. It's good for
So
you.
You talked to us a little bit earlier about how you did research at the British Museum, and our viewers got to see one of your reference images that you shot while you were there. Can you talk to us a little bit about some research that you did in our neck of the woods? I know that you recently actually visited us at the Gilcrease Museum, and you made a really cool discovery. Can you talk to us about that?
I really did. Yeah, I didn't expect that they had anything oblique because I know a lot of the stuff in the collection is Osage and some of the other work face kind of styles, and I was just blown away because there is a piece in the collection that's oblique that it has like no provenance. They don't really even know where it came from, how old it is, anything like that. But it had this really neat dye resist thing where it was either the dye was removed with some kind of a bleaching agent, or it was maybe painted on or something. I don't know, but it was fascinating. And I studied that thing for probably like an hour. I just couldn't get over it. And it had buttonholes in it woven into it. So there are, I think it was 6 or something buttonholes just along it. And I'm just, for the life of me, I just have so many theories about what it was used for. If it had some kind of like, accoutrements that were buttoned into it, or I have no idea if a utilitarian strap maybe was woven through the buttonholes and that was just for decoration. I don't know, but it was absolutely amazing. So I've really enjoyed that experience, and it inspired me to put buttonholes on the bag that I'm working on this year, which has 2 buttonholes in the front of it. And so it's just, I love being inspired by actual artifacts, and I just love that that stuff has survived because it's, you know, it's wool. It's it's pretty amazing, you know, that an organic fabric can survive. So that museum, your museum is so amazing at, you know, as preserving this stuff, which is so important for artists like us, because I didn't, before that, I had never seen anything like it, wouldn't have ever thought to do buttonholes, you know, so it's really important to preserve that stuff, and the Gilcrease does a great job.
Well, thank you. And I know Laura, it's really important to her to make sure that tribes feel welcomed. I think she
Yeah,
was the
she's
one that
great.
worked with you when you came in.
Hmm.
Um, so I love having the chance to work with people that, you know, have their priorities in the right place to support our native people.
Yeah, she's great, because I really did feel welcome, and you know, she was just like, stay as long as you want, you know. I'm like, okay, good, because I'm gonna be here a while.
Feeling
So
left out the sleeping bag.
yeah, exactly. That was a great experience.
Yeah, and so I know also a big part of the work that you do is also doing art shows. So I wanted to talk a little bit because you know, when I think of you, Karen, I'm like, okay, once a year I get to see Karen. I know she's going to be here for Art Market. And, you know, that unfortunately has changed for
Mhm.
this year as Cherokee Nation has put off Art Market. But I just wanted, if you could talk to us a little bit about what Cherokee Art Market is and the booth that you and your mom always have there.
Yeah, I mean, my mom is my hero. You know, I would have not gotten into any of this if it wasn't for her, because it would have been too terrifying to put my foot in the water of all this. And I'm down here in Texas, and I don't know anybody. And but yeah, so once a year we do Cherokee Art Market together, and we share a booth. And she does the beadwork, and I do the gourds and the finger weaving. So we have a booth full of a variety of fun stuff. And it's a great show, a great competition. I forget how many different tribes participate. It's a lot. I'm really sad it's canceled this year. I'm hoping they do something virtually, but you know, COVID's been horrible. But it also means I get to miss out on my Danielle hugs. So you know, I'm sad. So hopefully 2021 will be, you know, a nice reunion. But it's a great show. Hopefully they do something virtually this year so that people can check that out, even if it's just sharing the artist's bios or something like that. But otherwise, on a normal year, it's in October, and I highly recommend people check it out. It's in Tulsa, or Catoosa, but Tulsa. And it is a great show. You see all varieties of different tribal art. So it's good.
Yeah, so let's dive into some pictures about all of the awards that you guys have got. The first image that we're going to look at is an image of you and your mom, and it's actually at the Cherokee Art Market banquet. And so you have your big water spider gourd. I actually didn't realize how big she was.
Yeah, people don't realize that until they see me holding it. Just
Yeah.
like a big baby. But yeah, the reception is really fun, because you enter your pieces into competition during the day, that Friday, and you go to pick them up. And we call it the walk of shame if you come out holding your pieces, because basically, if you win, it's not there when you go to pick it up. You don't know what you've won yet until the reception. So it's really exciting to then go in there and find out what you placed. You're like, you know you won something, and it's just like kind of this, you know, very anticipation kind of feeling. And then you walk in there, and so this last year when I got best of class, I almost fainted. I was just I thought, oh, it's gonna be third place or something. That's great. I got an award, you know. I just to have been awarded that was just amazing.
Well, congratulations. And congratulations on your recent award, which this piece is probably one of my favorites. I'm a little biased because Doxy is one of my favorite characters. So if you guys want to learn a new Cherokee word today, Doxy is how we say turtle. And actually, your most recent submission was one called Doxy on Parade. And we can see here that it's actually a sash. And this is what you talk about when you are drawing. How do you say it? Drawing with beads?
Yeah. Yeah, I've started doing that lately. The first piece was that ebb and flow, which is the water motif. And I realized that I can actually do more pattern, like actual symbols and patterns with the beads, whereas before I was just doing diamonds and zigzags, and that's, you know, what was always done on oblique weaving. And I thought, once I started figuring out I could do this, I've just gone crazy with it and trying to do a lot of little small framed pieces like the water spider. And so yeah, the doxy is fun. And I love the turtle because the Cherokee, you know, talking about the three worlds concept, they were fascinated by turtles because they could travel freely from the underworld in our world, and we can't do that. And so they were just so revered, any kind of amphibious creatures like that. So yeah, doxy's pretty cute. I like the way the symbol turned out with the, because I actually do that symbol. It's just one line to make the turtle with a spiral. I do that in my gourd carving, and it's much more curvilinear because you can't get very curvilinear with the oblique, unfortunately. But I was able to convert it into a oblique pattern and was really happy with how he turned out.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And the next one is actually, I believe it's the blue sash we're gonna look at. It's a picture of you and your mom, and it's the art market where your mom entered the bandolier bag with the woodpecker motif on it. And then so we have a beautiful picture of you and your mom. I love you guys so much. Work and what you guys do together. It's just awesome.
I think that's Jacobite Groom. I forget which picture I sent you. The sash, but I could be wrong.
And then we actually have a close-up we're going to look at right now. It's the one that has the white outline, and then it's the blue and green with the diamonds in it. And so, I mean, it's just, this sash is really beautiful. And then the last picture we're going to look at is the one that we talked about earlier, which I think you said was your first award, the little water spider gourd at the Heritage Center Art Show.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that was my very first ribbon, and it just is so neat to see that people like what I'm doing, and yeah, it became an addiction. But yeah, that sash, that I think that was Jacobite Groom, and I'm always trying to, the current gourd I'm working on right now is also a Celtic Cherokee mashup, which is really fun for me to do. I like doing the different cultures that are so similar and yet so different. But that Jacobite Groom I did because the Dress Act in Scotland was kind of going along at the same time as we were doing oblique weaving here. So I picked the colors from my Graham family tartans for that piece. So that was a special one. I was happy that they awarded it.
Yeah, and that was one of our questions. So we had someone pop in and they said, can you talk to us about how your Scottish heritage affects your Cherokee artwork?
Oh, awesome. Well, there you go. Yeah, I love that there's so many similarities. And the piece I'm working on now has the Cherokee four wind symbol on it, which represents wind and I can't remember now, fire, I think. But it looks to me, it's always looked to me like a Celtic knot. The way it's basically two rings that are locked together, just like a Celtic knot. And I'm filling it in with relief of Celtic knots and the Trinity symbol, which also is a Celtic symbol, but it's three worlds. I mean, I just love the connections between the cultures. So I'm really happy to have that rich family history and play on that. And so I like to keep doing those. I did one a few years ago called the Melting Pot, which was similar. It had some of the Cherokee motifs and the Celtic knots kind of working together. So that's fun.
Yeah, I love how you incorporate not just part of who you are, but all of who you are into your pieces. That's a really cool representation.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm proud of it, and I think it just enriches us to have all these cultures. And I love the way the Cherokees and other of the southeastern tribes just adopted the Scots, the Irish, the Europeans into the tribe, and it is just great to think of. Yeah, let's work together.
Yeah, so I do want to remind everyone before we talk about our last topic that you can submit questions, and we'll try and get them on so Karen can answer them. But the last thing I want to talk about, which your mom talked about a lot, is it's not just important to know how to do this, but it's also important to teach it. And so I know that you actually teach some classes. So can you talk to us about that? But you also, when all of this stay-at-home stuff happened, you actually took a little venture onto YouTube. So can you talk to us about that as well?
Definitely. Yeah, I've always wanted to do that. People are always like, do you have any videos or anything like that? And then the lockdown happened, and I thought, I want to give this to people as something if they want to learn a hobby while they're trapped at home. So I just tried to rush through getting at least some beginner videos out there, just so that, I'll hope to add. I want to add to them in the future, but at least now it's kind of the the one-on-one kind of stuff of getting started. And since I am left-handed, I posted videos for right and left-handed for the videos where you really need to learn that with your strong hand. And so, yeah, those are really fun to put together. I use big fat yarn just so you can see what I'm doing. I got a little like tripod thing to hold my phone above my hands. So hopefully those videos have helped people to learn a new skill during the lockdown, which keeps everyone sane. And yeah, so those are really fun. I will be adding to them in the future. I want to talk more about like the history and the difference between warp face and oblique and that kind of thing. So I'll add to that channel in the future. And then hopefully after all this is over, I can get back to teaching more hands-on classes. I've been asked to do some over video, but it's such a hands-on technique that I think that that would be better to actually do real life classes. And then in the meantime, the YouTube videos you can watch over and over again instead of a video with the actual instructor not being able to like grab your hands and manipulate them. So, hopefully after all this, I'll teach another class, maybe at the Heritage Center or something like that. So look forward to it because I love, like you said, teaching is very important. And just encourage people that, they always feel like when they take my class, they're like, this is horrible. I can't do this. It's like, you just have to practice and keep doing it and you get better and better and better. And it goes slow too. Because if you go too fast, that's where the lines get neat or whatever. When I first started, they were wobbly and looked horrible and just takes practice.
Karen, did I ever show you my first belt?
I think maybe you did. I'll have to show you mine too. If you show me yours, I'll show you mine.
That's like that's the thing. We absolutely want you guys. I hope that this encourages everyone to want to learn how to finger weave because there are definitely not enough finger weavers in the world. Yeah. And I would definitely encourage you to keep your first belt. Mine literally is a snake. I should Oochtan or something, or like just call it Enada, just call it snake. It literally just like snakes, and I still have it, and I think it's really important because to Cherokee people, it's all about learning, it's all about growth, and so it reminds us where we came from, but it doesn't mean we're there. We're always progressing. So I love that you have the YouTube tutorials up. Please, if you're watching this, take a look and try and do this. I don't know for you, Karen, but the one thing that finger weaving absolutely taught me is patience. And I'm not a patient person. It hasn't taught me patience in everything in life, but it has taught me patience in finger weaving.
Well, and like you said about your first piece, I keep mine pinned to my bulletin board in my art room as a constant reminder that practice makes perfect because it looks horrible. And it's just great to have that there. Anytime you get frustrated, you look at it, you're like, okay, cool. So it's funny because I used to say when Mom was doing the beadwork, I was like, I thought I'll never do that. That I don't know how you have the patience to do that. That takes forever. And I like the gourd carving because it's just dirty and quick, and it doesn't take as much dexterity and just methodical work. And then I started the finger weaving. So I don't know what happened in between there because the finger weaving takes a lot of patience. So I've definitely had to learn that as well.
Yes, it does. So
to me, it's therapeutic. And like I said, I do it every day. So, you may get an inch of, a couple days. It's like, but eventually it's finished. And, so it's a very nice kind of ritual for me to do that every day.
Yeah, when I do mine, I have a stand and I like roll it as it goes. So
Yeah.
I'm never getting bogged down. I'm like, okay, I have to unwrap this. Okay, I'm farther
Fantastic.
than I thought.
Exactly. Like, oh, farther than I thought it was.
Yeah. So, Karen, I just want to thank you so much for being here today. I don't think we have any more questions. We have lots of people who have reached out and talked about how beautiful your artwork is, thanking you for your time, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and uh, educating us a little bit about what finger weaving is and also gourd carving and some of our Cherokee traditions. So we hope that everyone has enjoyed this Facebook Live. Please share it on social media. You can find Karen Berry, KarenBerryCherokee.com if you want to look at her website. You can also find her on Facebook. It's Karen Berry Cherokee Artist. Please give her a follow. Follow all the beautiful work she's doing. You can also find the Gilcrease on social media and stay up to date with what we're doing. So thank you so much, Karen, for being here. It was a pleasure talking to you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, Danielle, and keep doing what you're doing over there.
Well, we will see you soon, Karen.
Thank you.